Well, after about 4 weeks on the job, DOGE has revealed things that have shocked us, appalled us, and mystified us. But the real horror is yet to be fully uncovered, because the real horror is we've been paying for our own opposition. Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott. And as we begin to untangle this aneurysm of corruption that has been known as the federal government, we found out very recently some things that I think most Americans will find not just a waste of money, but genuinely horrifying. It appears that George Soros, whose mission to destroy America has been ongoing for several decades now, has received about $250 million of taxpayer money. Black Lives Matter apparently got $10 million of taxpayer money, and the list continues. Gentlemen, back in the early days when we were all working at PJTV, I did an early afterburner where Evan Thomas, former editor on Newsweek, said during the 2004 election, now, this is with John Kerry, said that he thought that media bias was worth 15 points at the polls. That's a 15-point headwind. What we are beginning to discover is that our tax dollars have been going to create the headwind that we have been fighting for the last 20 or 30 years. We are literally being taxed to spend, to have that money go to people who are determined to destroy this country. George Soros and his Open Border Society, George Soros and his support of these radical district attorneys and so on. It's one thing if the guy wants to spend his money to destroy America. It's an entire different thing to find out that your money is being sent to destroy this country, and I find it a little horrifying, to be honest with you. Steve, it's almost impossible to imagine what the country would look like without this headwind that we're constantly fighting. It's got to be worth 30 points at the polls now. This control of the media, we find out that tax dollars have gone to Politico. We find tax dollars have gone to the BBC, which puts out an awful lot of anti-American content. We're going to find that tax dollars has gone directly to mainstream media outlets. I don't think there's any question that this is going to be revealed. We find that tax dollars have gone to foundations and NGOs, all of whom are opposed to the fundamental values of freedom of speech, Republican values, democracy, all of these things. The only thing in this that makes all of this bearable, the thought that the money you've been paying in taxes for the last 20, 30 years of your life have been going to pay for your own opposition, is the fact that it looks like it's ending, and more to the point, it does not look like the opposition can survive without it.
And you know what? Let's call it what it is. It's a protection racket. And for those who don't know, let's say you've got a little store in a part of New York, a little convenience store, and the local mafia thug shows up and says, you owe us 10% of whatever you pull in, and we're going to use that money to protect you. Well, protect me from who? Well, from the mafia.
Nice business you got there.
Nice work if you can get it, exactly. In fact, Monty Python had a lot of fun with that, where the mafia thugs tried to do this at an army base.
Yep.
And I love those guys. Anyway, and that's what this is. You mentioned Politico. The Politico Pro thing is my absolute favorite example of this. We learned about a week or two ago. So Politico Pro is basically pro-level news for bureaucrats. I've looked at Politico Pro, and it is, to sum it up very briefly, it is progressive bureaucrats reading what progressive reporters spoke to about with other progressive bureaucrats. That's all it is. And yet a subscription, a single username subscription for Politico Pro is $7,000 to $15,000 annually for this subscription. Again, nice work if you can get it. And as somebody on X pointed out, I wish I could claim credit for this, and I wish I could give credit to the proper person, but I don't remember who this was. As they pointed out, the only reason that Politico Pro is worth that much money is it's paid for with government dollars, and they don't give a damn how much it costs. In fact, I would bet you that the real prestige of Politico Pro isn't the reporting, because again, I've read it. It ain't that great. It ain't worth what they charge for it. There is a prestige attached to it that if you are an important enough bureaucrat, you can justify the $15,000, and that's what they're paying for with our tax dollars. And by the way, those Politico Pro subscriptions spiked after January 2021, when Joe Biden came into office. So let's call that what it was. It was a payoff. It was absolutely a payoff to the umbrella Politico organization for all their good work for Democrats over the years. And Trump has, on DOGE's advice, DOGE has no authority, by the way. When you read DOGE cancel this, DOGE cancel this, DOGE didn't do anything. It's an advisory organization set up, by the way, under a different name by Barack Obama. And their authority is airtight. It's great. They took an Obama organization, an Obama era organization, and just they took it over. They did the Democrat thing. They killed it and they put on its skin suit, and they're going around just terrorizing the bureaucracy instead of them terrorizing us for once. And I love it. So, Bill, just to sum up really quickly, when you say we haven't gotten really started on this, that's the absolute truth. Because federal spending ballooned. I'm not talking about the temporary stupid stimulus stuff that Trump did in 2020 that pissed me off so much. I'm talking about the permanent increase in spending that Joe Biden did in 2021 and 2022. Amounted to over $2 trillion a year in brand new spending. Now, Elon Musk says his goal for DOGE is $1 trillion this year. And I believe he's at not even 10% of that yet. And he wants to get to 2. And all I can tell you is, based on what the budget has done over the last 4 years, it's there. It's there. It can be cut. This is new stuff that nobody asked for. So get those scissors out. We'll start cutting.
So I'd like to come back to this idea, Scott, that this isn't just waste, that tax dollars are being used to support all of these radical, progressive, left-wing causes, and that the American taxpayer is paying for their own demise, basically, and funding their own demise. And just to give you an idea of the scale of this, let me just read you this quick little retweet here. It's from Tom Moore, and he says, Elon Musk calls it the largest fraud in history. There are 21 million people over the age of 100 receiving Social Security benefits, 21 million. He says there are only 89,739 people over the age of 100 alive in the United States today. The Social Security Administration headquarters is a massive forensic accounting cybercrime scene. I did some math on those numbers. If it turns out that we're making payments to 21 million people age 100 plus, and there's only 89,000 of them that are actually alive, that means that for every single person who's over 100 years old getting benefits in this country, there are 234 people who are getting benefits who are not on the planet. 234 people over the age of 100 are getting benefits for every one person that is actually over the age of 100 in this country. That's just one pathway of this enormous fraud that has been going on in this country. And not all, but most all of this is going to enrich Democratic politicians and left-wing causes. And I'm kind of teeing you up for this, Scott. My fond hope as we get deeper and deeper and deeper into this will be to uncover all of these left-wing causes and all of these left-wing actors and all of these politicians who've enriched themselves, all these Democrats. But I also hope we find a few Republicans as well, because that will lend credibility and believability to this idea that Washington has been a fortress, and the entire purpose of rhinos is to make sure that somebody like Donald Trump didn't come in here and uncover the scale of the control, the political control over how we vote. That's the thing that bothers me more than the waste, is the fact that this money has come from my paychecks, gone to the government, and been used to set up a 30-point headwind that I have to overcome at the polls in order to get my my vote counted.
And every one of the people who work for those organizations and agencies, at least from the government point of view, when they're handing out money to these foundations and NGOs, every one of them will tell you that they are absolutely apolitical. They are non-political actors. They are just, when whatever they're doing for the good of the American people, and they are not playing it for one side or the other. Some of them actually believe that. However, after you live in that aquarium for a while, you become accustomed to thinking that the aquarium is the world and everything that you do within it seems equitable, fair, just, and nonpartisan. But if looked at from outside, like where most of us live, we look at that and we recoil in horror. Now, as terrifying and sad and awful and ugly as this is, it actually makes me gleefully happy that it's being unearthed, that somebody's finding it. And my only concern at this point is some of the stuff I've been hearing sounds so mind-blowingly impossible that I'm thinking, are they stretching it a little bit? Are they exaggerating a little bit? Like on the Social Security thing, are the people who are getting money actually the survivors of the people who were centenarians and not the centenarians themselves? Is all of that corruption? I'm hoping it's not all corruption on the one hand. On the other hand, boy, that would be a nice savings if it were all corruption, and it would allow us to, shut the barn door, though the horse has already escaped, but future horses will not escape. So, I keep kind of holding my breath and sitting on the edge of my seat and thinking, okay, please don't sensationalize this, President Trump or Elon Musk or anybody who's speaking about these things. Yeah. Just give us the facts. Don't say things before you know things. Don't feed our temptation to run off with our confirmation bias and start declaring all kinds of things that we don't have the justification to support. But to me, this is a really promising time to achieve some of the goals, the long-term goals of conservatives with regard to governance, not just to reduce the cost of it, but to increase the integrity of it and to shrink it down to something that is appropriate for the role that it was meant to serve.
So back to what I said at the beginning, where Evan Thomas, who's a Democrat, obviously, said he thought that media bias was worth 15 points at the polls. I think it's worth 30 points now, something in that neighborhood. But let's take a super conservative position and say that it's worth 10 points at the polls. When I did that afterburner at PJTV, I took a look at the 2008 election results, and I moved 10 points from Barack Obama and shifted 10 points to John McCain. And the electoral map in that case came out with Obama winning Delaware, D.C., and that's all. And John McCain swept every other state and won in one of the biggest landslides in American history. If it turns out, as appears to be the case, that we have been funding the headwind that we have been fighting against, and that headwind is worth only 10 points at the polls, Donald Trump didn't win this election by 3 points. He won it by 23 points. If it turns out that we have been funding a gigantic, enormous fan that has been blowing in our faces, and we are now in the process of shutting off the funds and the power and the electricity to that headwind, then elections in the future are going to look a lot more like the way that we have felt the American people really feel the whole time. It could be the end of the Democratic Party as we understand it, in the same way that the Whigs finally simply just had to go the way of the Whigs, and who knows what's going to turn out. One final little note that just has a bit of poetry to it. What we're seeing is the ultimate in Machiavellian politics, power politics, the ability to move power without regard for any morality whatsoever. That's at least the thumbnail definition of Machiavellianism, is the exercise of raw power for power's sake without any concern whatsoever for morality. Machiavelli wrote The Prince, which is where all of these things came from. And he was talking about probably the most corrupt, venal, vicious, murderous, immoral society in Western civilization, which was the city of Venice, which was itself a city-state unto itself and had enormous power in the centuries prior to the Enlightenment. I find it interesting that the person who was elected the leader of the state of Venice was known as the DOGE, D-O-G-E. And wouldn't it be something if we actually had an honest Doge, the good Doge, maybe you could say, that we'd been all waiting for all our lives, the good Doge who comes into the center of this Machiavellian web and decides to dissolve it, hammer and tongs. Not only do I think that's possible, I think it's likely. And the outcome for future elections, while the past abuses are enough to drive you out of your mind with rage and fury, the future without this kind of headwind could be the kind of future that we've only not dared dream about in our wildest dreams. Yeah. For Steve Green and Scott Ott, I'm Bill Whittle. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the members at BillWhittle, at BillWhittle.com for making this show possible.